All right, good evening, my friends. I'm back, and I'm glad to see you are too. I enjoyed my vacation time, and thank you to Gina. She did her usual stellar job as facilitator, and I got to see the recording from last week, and it was quite a good discussion, wasn't it? And one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of times on first read, it's very hard to get an understanding of the passages.
Yes.
And yet, the more we break it down and each other can comment on it, I think working together, we're able to understand some of these, to me, very deep messages in the readings that we're doing. Uh, did I say the part that this is the Unity of Livonia, a Course in Miracles study group, and I'll do the date time stamp by saying today is November 21st, around 7 p.m. Eastern, and we've got a lively group here for another lively discussion of A Course in Miracles. But first, I wanted to, I don't know, I always start feeling a little ambivalent on this subject. About at least 2 years ago now, Spirit gave me this thing called practical spirituality. And, I've been talking about it. I've done a couple of workshops on it. I had a couple of speaking engagements where I talked about practical spirituality as perhaps a way to encourage more people to use spiritual principles in their lives in a serious way, and not just when they're at church or at meditation, but in their secular lives, and to encourage them to use spiritual principles. I have been proposing that maybe we can not make spiritual principles sound so spiritual and just come with a more down-to-earth approach that says use spiritual principles because they make your life better. And there are any number of examples of how joining and unity gives us all more power, and we're more empowered to live our daily lives. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is see if I can get more traction with this by announcing this thing called our Practical Spirituality Network for 2024. And so what I wanted to do, if it's okay, is just do a brief summary of what practical spirituality is and see if any of you might be interested in joining our Practical Spirituality Network. What do you have to do? Well, right now, to be honest, I'm not sure. But I'm thinking if we can come together in this network, there are any number of activities that we may have the wherewithal to get started. So what I wanted to do is just show you this summary of practical spirituality and see if you think anyone might be interested in joining our Practical Spirituality Network. let me share a screen and pull this document up so you can see what I'm talking about. And it's in 3 sections, so I need 3 readers. But what the heck, I'm thinking we may as well assign our readers, right, for tonight and get that done. So I have Sherilyn as reader 1, and Gina number 2, Kathleen number 3, Meg number 4, Joan number 5, Debbie 6, Linda 7, and Ron 8. Did I leave anyone out? Right? So let's just go to reader 1. I'll pull this document up, hopefully. And can you see it okay? Or, yeah, is that good for everybody? So there are 3 sections: keeping it real, what is practical spirituality, and what are spiritual principles, or how do we define them for the purposes of practical spirituality. So Sherilyn, could you read that first section here?
Certainly. Practical Spirituality Overview. Keeping it real, the state of the world. Despite all the things we've tried so far, would you agree that there are still a lot of things in the world that don't seem to work right? And given the incredible capabilities of today's technologies, don't you think that it's almost certain that the next big things that are going to happen and might not go right are going to be big? Don't you think that a lot of people worldwide are feeling like you, that something big is getting ready to happen? An inflection point, a large scale happening, possibly leading to a global solution or a global disaster? If we can reasonably anticipate that whatever is going to happen next is going to be big, is there anything we can or should do? Is it getting to the point, spiritually speaking, that we must act to save our brothers and sisters in order to save ourselves? We believe that the time is now and that practical spirituality, P.S., may be a big way we can help.
Yeah, so let me stop right there and see what your feelings are. How long have you been hearing people saying something big is getting ready to happen?
Quite a while.
Yeah. Do you remember the year 2012 when something big was getting ready to happen? And I'm thinking of, didn't we as a group talk about Barbara Marx Hubbard and the futurists, and her idea that we were coming to a certain point where the over complexity of the world would end up making some sort of breakdown happen. But on the positive side, it could be a breakthrough, not a breakdown. In order for something new to emerge, there has to be a breakdown of something old to make space for it. So I just feel like I'm 76, right? And I used to say, boy, there's a lot of big things going on in the world, a lot of problems. And I sure hope the kids can fix it, because I probably won't be around to see the solution. But then it occurred to me, when I was coming up, we said, boy, things are moving fast. What's it going to be like in the next 50 years? You remember that? Anybody? What's it going to be like in the next 50 years?
Really?
Because things are moving so fast. My friends, what's it going to be like in the next 5 years? We got AI, we got climate change, we've got the possible fall of democracy. I could go on, couldn't you?
Yeah.
And given our ability to impact people, the technologies that we have now, things that happen have a bigger impact. Listen, Jesus, as great as Jesus was, on his best day, probably spoke to 1,000 people, right? So for all that good, it had to impact very slowly because there were no mechanisms for communication on scale that way. Well, we've resolved that issue, haven't we, through our technologies? So I'm just thinking, for good or evil, big things are happening for good or evil. There was a line there that said, is it getting to the point, spiritually speaking, that we must act to save our brothers and sisters in order to save ourselves? Most of us here can attest to the power of love and what it's done to make our lives better. Most of us could probably demonstrate that love works better than fear. I'm starting to think that love may be the most consistently overlooked power that we might embrace. And yet it's been here the whole time. So that's what I mean when I say maybe we need to give love a try seriously. And now may be the time we need to step up and do it and let our brothers and sisters know, not just through our words, but through our demonstration, that love does work. Comments there, and then we'll move on.
Okay, I guess I just have one, and probably it's because we're gonna be talking about forgiveness today, and I'm thinking forgiveness is probably the way we're gonna get to that love. Because we're gonna have to, in order to save our brothers and sisters, we might have to forgive people to get to people that we disagree with, if that makes any sense. You see where I'm coming from? Obviously, if everybody's seeing what I'm seeing, there's a lot of people out there that I'm not even sure I understand. They're so different than I am.
Yes, and yet we read and study things that say they are no different from us, right?
Yes, right.
Here's the other thing about teaching practical spirituality. It's hard to teach it if you don't do it yourself. So it may steer some of us to more seriously participate in love, simply because we have to be the examples of what we want to teach. So it may not just be a win-win for others, but it may help us to more fully embrace a loving lifestyle as well. I don't think we'd argue with that, given our serious commitment to the idea that God is love already. Thanks for your comments here, Debbie. Are there others? All right, this is again by way of introduction, and I'm just trying to see if there's any interest at all in pursuing something like this. Gina, you're our next reader. Would you do that section? What is practical spirituality?
Sure. PS is a respectful translation of spiritual principles in a way that appeals primarily to people's common sense. Based on the principles of the spiritual self-study book, A Course in Miracles, ACIM, and its teachings on the power of love, the goal of PS is to get large numbers of people to use spiritual principles as a lifestyle, simply because using them makes their lives better and makes the lives of others better as well. PS proposes that it can make the benefits of using spiritual principles acceptable to many more people by de-emphasizing the use of religious or spiritual language and references, and replacing them with secular language and references instead. In short, PS presents spiritual principles in a way that both believers and non-believers can understand and be motivated to give a serious try.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Does that make any sense? You know, it's like, I remember I used to go to church and it was almost like I enjoyed it and spirit was moving, but alas, it was the end of service and now I had to get back to the real world. You know, the real world, the dog eat dog world, the one where love is quite an overlooked commodity in most of our endeavors. And so I'm saying that spiritual principles can not only be talked about, but demonstrated in a very common sense way. When people join together, they're more powerful, they're more creative. Can you imagine what we could have done as a society if people worked together? Can you imagine all the resources we don't have to squander by defending ourselves? How much does military cost? How much do policemen cost? And all of that infrastructure. Whereas if we could just see that it's better to love than to hate. The problem is you got to do it on a large enough scale to demonstrate that love's better than hate. And when you do something at church, it's very valid. The only problem is separation of church and the quote unquote real world. And so theoretically, we leave church behind, or we're very hesitant to use church in our day-to-day lives. So I'm saying maybe there's a common sense way that won't offend people that don't like church, that don't want to hear about God, that don't want to do all of these ritual things, and just teach it in a very common sense way. What do I mean by spiritual principles? Kathleen, would you do that
Sure.
part?
Sure, what are spiritual principles? PS offers an admittedly very simplistic definition of spiritual principles, but it's one that we believe a lot of people might buy into, regardless of their religious or spiritual beliefs. Maybe our reasons for using such a simplistic definitions are obvious. It's to avoid, or at least minimize, the many differences and conflicts that continue to be such a big part of religion and even spirituality today. We believe that a minimalistic definition of spiritual principles will help us get many more people engaged in practical spirituality. So, for the purpose of PS, our super simple definition of spiritual principles: be nice, be loving, it works, and we can prove it. What do you think? Email us with your questions, comments, and suggestions. PS Network, info@lovecom.org.
Yeah, and I made it a little easier. If you look at your agenda on that line item that says Practical Spirituality Network, there's a link. And if you click on that link in the agenda, you can just go join the network and just let us know here at Love Communications that you're amenable to being part of this network. Now, what does this network do? Well, there's a lot potentially it could do, but for right now, I'd just be glad to hear from you that you might consider supporting some activities to promote this practical spirituality, which is spiritual practice based on common sense. Can you think of any common sense examples of how using spiritual principles work, defined as be nice and be loving? Has being nice worked for you?
Yeah. Dalai Lama says, just be kind. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you think that this is a definition that Tibetan monks might get behind? How about Baptists,
Sure.
Methodists, Episcopalian, Jews?
Yeah.
Palestinians? Yeah, it's a little questionable under the circumstances, but it's very simple. It's very straightforward. Let me ask you this. If you could be nice all the time, would your life be better?
Absolutely.
I'm open to dissent. Does somebody want to say no, that being nice does not make your life better? It has for me, to the point that, with the course, it is a non-dual teaching, right?
Right.
And we've learned to be nice all the time, no exceptions. We learn that that doesn't mean letting people run all over us, but there is a nice way to even face adversity, isn't it? Don't you feel better now that you've learned that when you encounter a difficult person, that you don't have to get angry and act from that, that there's another way of seeing this. Now, we know that's all very Course in Miracles spiritual, right? But you don't have to go on and tell people it's all Course in Miracles and spiritual and we're so meditation. And no, I can demonstrate to you through my life that being nice makes my life better. A lot of people wouldn't agree with it, but a lot of people maybe have to be taught. I'm just saying this other stuff we've been doing for a long time doesn't seem to be working. And that maybe there is another way. I'm suggesting we give love a serious try, not just at church. No offense to church, you follow? So if you like to support this, an easy way to do it is just click on that link and join our Practical Spirituality Network, and we'll see where we go from here. So, you know, I usually use this study group to pilot things that I'm trying to do, if you haven't noticed that over the years. So I'm kind of bringing it to you as we prepare our 2024 initiatives here, okay? So I thank you for your kind attention on that. And I'll close that up. And I think, is there anything else before we get back into the song of prayer? Okay. Well, good deal. I'm a little confused as to where we left off. I think Gina didn't quite remember either, but we were in forgiveness for salvation, right?
Yep. I wasn't sure if we left off after 5 or and did we read 6 or not was where
I think we
couldn't-
read 5, not 6.
Yeah,
that's what I was
yeah,
thinking.
that's what I
We
have also. We
start
read
at
5, but not 6. Yeah.
Okay.
Not as
Hi,
confused
Dee,
as you think.
welcome. Good to see you, Dee. And
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
hello. And Dee, you'll be reader 9 after Ron, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So right now, Kathleen just read. So Meg, would you give us, is it okay to just start right in on paragraph 6, or does somebody need to set the tone or something where we
I
left?
always like going back a paragraph, but it's up to everyone.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Why don't we start with 6 and see how confused we are?
Okay.
And we can back up then.
Okay.
Meg, why don't you start us out, dear?
Okay. Forgiveness truly given is the way in which your only hope of freedom lies. Others will make mistakes, and so will you.
Wait, I'm sorry. Where are we? Where are you? Are we starting at paragraph 6?
Yeah.
In
Am I on the wrong
forgiveness
page?
for salvation?
Page 14.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry.
Yeah, hey, that happens to me all the time. No problem.
Okay, page 14.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. And what is it he speaks to you about? About salvation and the gift of peace, about the end of sin and guilt and death, about the role of forgiveness has in him. Do you but listen? For he will be heard by anyone who calls upon his name and places his forgiveness in his hands. Forgiveness has been given him to teach, to save it from destruction, and to make the means for separation, sin, and death become again the holy gift of God. Prayer is his own right hand, made free to save as true forgiveness is allowed to come from his eternal vigilance and love. Listen and learn, and do not judge. It is to God you turn to hear what you should do. His answer will be clear as morning, nor is his forgiveness what you think it is.
Who's he?
Who's he?
Without going back into paragraph 4 and 5, it says, and what is it he speaks to you about? Who's he? Well, one clue is it's a capital H, right?
God.
Okay, so it's going to have to kind of be one of the big three.
Right.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Which one you think it is? Maybe we do need to back up. I think it's speaking of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yay? Set.
I don't know.
And what is it the Holy Spirit speaks to you about? And then it says what it is and about the role forgiveness has in the Holy Spirit. Do you listen? For the Holy Spirit will be heard by anyone who calls upon the Holy Spirit's name. Is that reading okay so far?
Mhm.
Yes? No?
Uh-huh.
All right. So, what is this thing in sentence 7? Which again makes me think it's the Holy Spirit. Forgiveness has been given the Holy Spirit to teach, to save it from destruction, and to make the means for separation, sin, and death become what? Just keep reading.
Holy
I'll
gift.
stop, but you can keep reading and all right. Is this an example of turning lemons into lemonade? He says, forgiveness has been given him to teach, to save it from destruction, and to make the means for separation, sin, and death become the holy gift from God. This whole forgiveness thing is an illusion, is it not?
Uh-huh.
And so, is this an example of using level 2 activities, but instead of leading to death, to use level 2 activities to lead to life?
Yeah. That's what
So,
forgiveness is.
yeah, so forgiveness is an illusory technique, but one that leads to salvation. It's like learning. Is learning an illusion?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And yet you'll see the Holy Spirit uses level 2 activities for salvation, whereas we started out using it for rebellion. Is that helping to explain sentence 7 a little bit more?
Mhm.
Don't you see that characteristic again of turning lemons into transforming lemons into lemonade? It's an extraordinary skill, don't you think? What else are you seeing there? It's a fairly long paragraph. Then why don't we continue? Meg, you read, so we're up to Joan for paragraph 7.
Okay. Still does he know, and that should be enough. Forgiveness has a teacher who will fail in nothing. Rest a while in this. Do not attempt to judge forgiveness, nor to set it in an earthly frame. Let it arise to Christ, who welcomes it as a gift to him. He will not leave you comfortless, nor fail to send his angels down to answer you in his own name. He stands beside the door to which forgiveness is the only key. Give it to him to use instead of you, and you will see the door swing silently open upon the shining face of Christ. Behold your brother there beyond the door, the Son of God as he created him.
Thanks, Joan. Any comments, guys and ladies and gentlemen? Paragraph 7. Again, I want to ask, who is he in paragraph 7?
It looks to me like it's Christ.
And what makes you think that?
Let it arise to Christ, sentence 4.
Okay. And then I say it because I'm confused. Because in paragraph 6, near the end, sentence 10, it is to God you turn to hear what you should do.
Well, they're not
God's
really
answer.
3 separate entities here. It's just one.
Good observation, right? So I'm playing around here in a level 2 scenario with you for clarity's sake. And yet, ultimately, what difference does it make, right, Joan? We're all, it's the same entity in different aspects. But for clarity's sake, who's having trouble understanding this?
Me.
Thank you.
Every paragraph I have trouble with it. Feels like my head's cracking open.
Exactly. And I feel somewhat the same way. And yet I'm encouraged because I've been able to get a lot out of these things if I just kind of keep working at it and things like that. But rather than belabor who is he, I was intrigued by the very first sentence in the section forgiveness for salvation. And that first sentence says, forgiveness for salvation has one form and only one. What were your insights about that sentence from last time? Is that at the top of your agenda? I usually try and go through and find some sort of passage to put at the top of the agenda. Wasn't that what I put there for last week? Or is it for this week? I don't remember. But that notwithstanding, what is the one form that forgiveness for salvation takes? It says it does not ask for proof of innocence, nor pay of any kind. It does not argue nor evaluate the errors that it wants to overlook. It does not offer gifts and treachery nor promise freedom while it asks for death. So, what is the one form that forgiveness for salvation always takes?
Okay, I'll give my opinion, all right?
Aren't you glad I'm back, right? Go right
I'm
ahead.
like, I'm gonna stick my neck out, all right. Can agree with this or not, but to me, the form is that if I perceive that forgiveness is necessary, then that leads me to Holy Spirit. Like, I need to take this to meditation. And that leads to connection.
Okay.
And that's, to me, the form. Now I see, how am I connected in this way? My human form may think that it's forgiveness, but Spirit's going to tell me, you're all one. You're seeing yourself here. You're seeing a different aspect, or that's how I interpret it. You're seeing a different aspect of you, and it can only be love because you are love. So, and I'm not going to say that I always go into meditation and turn this around immediately.
Okay.
Because this can be a long, drawn out, like you're telling your mother, but it was, they did, and but eventually it comes down to, you're supposed to look at this because there's something you're supposed to see.
And what would that be that you're always supposed to see?
How I'm connected to what
Yeah.
to what I is there. There's a connection. It's not always obvious.
All right. So thank you for jumping out there, Miss Miller.
Like I said, that's just my opinion. Everybody might have
Yeah.
a different one,
Sure.
Yeah.
Other comments about forgiveness for salvation has one form and only one?
I was wondering if the name of the booklet is a song of prayer. Is prayer the form that's mentioned here?
I'm under the understanding that forgiveness is associated with prayer, kind of like forgiveness is what gives prayer its wings. Do you remember something like that when we went through the forms about forgiveness and then started going into different types of forgiveness? And we started with forgiveness to destroy. And then was it forgiveness for salvation was the next one. But I remember in your conversations last week, you had a lot to say about what makes forgiveness appropriate, and should I say something, or what if they respond this way, or what if this happens, how should I forgive? And it seemed we were bringing in some conditions. Is that just me, my interpretation? of your discussion? Comment.
I don't remember discussion, but I think the one form is love. To be loving.
And so what I got out of forgiveness for salvation is it's unconditional. If it's not loving, I need to forgive. If I see it as not loving, I need to forgive myself.
Mhm.
Period. And there were questions about, so how do I interact with that person? Let me ask you this. Can you forgive what never happened? How easy is it to overlook what never happened? Is that hard?
No.
Theoretically, theoretically, is it hard?
No.
So
No,
we're
if you
back.
believe it.
Comment.
No, I said it's not hard if you truly believe it's not real.
So,
Right. If you think it never happened, there's nothing to forgive.
Right.
so if it never happened, what would you be doing? Going on with your life as if it never happened.
Yep, being love.
There, and again, I'm just speaking to the theory of this stuff. I understand it's not that easy, but the premise of forgiveness for salvation is it does not ask for proof of innocence nor compensation of any kind. Forgiveness for salvation does not argue nor evaluate the errors that it wants to overlook. It does not offer gifts and treachery nor promise freedom while it asks for death. You just say, would God deceive you? And that all that is not love is illusory? Well, I'm not so sure, God. Wait, what about this? Okay. So, do you see how we're into this realm of non-dualism? I will let it go because it's not loving. And what will I do to show that I let it go? Just keep being my loving self as though it never happened. Now, there was some talk last time about, well, should I talk to that person? Or should I talk to him now? Or should I wait a week or a month or some? I don't know about that. It may come up again. That's not for me to say. But in the meantime, I know right away I need to forgive myself. Why? Because it wasn't loving. How could that be?
Yeah.
Comment, Deb.
Well, I was just gonna say, so if we're listening to spirit, isn't spirit gonna tell us what to do?
That's
When
my
we see
point.
that person again, you know, we just need to be open to that and
Yes.
to attempt to communicate what spirit is telling us to communicate,
Yes.
which is love, right? In a loving way. We need to, whatever we
Yeah.
say, it needs to be loving.
You'll deal with it, but
Right.
remember, I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who's with me will direct me.
Right.
But I'm getting out of the way. It wasn't loving. by definition, I need to forgive it. I need to forgive myself. Clear the moment so spirit can tell me whatever to do next. I don't have feelings about it because it never happened. Will that encounter continue? That's not up to me.
Mhm.
But what is up to me is to be myself. How often?
Always.
Is that non-dual or dual?
Non-dual.
Okay. These are, to me, some real life examples of what it means to be one thing all the time. Could that possibly be a peaceful way of living?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can get my ego off my back. Okay, I used to tell myself when I was having a problem or in trouble or whatever, and I would say, now, okay, what would I be doing if everything was fine? And I'd make myself do that, whether I wanted to, whether I was feeling it or not. And it kind of started working. At any rate, we're back to these essences. Forgiveness for salvation does not question forgiveness. It simply applies forgiveness to anything that is unreal. How do you know it's not real?
It's not love.
Okay, that's what God keeps saying, but God may be trying to deceive me. But here somewhere it said, would God deceive you or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So this is my way of just trying to summarize my understanding of some of these very difficult passages here. Forgiveness to destroy has an ulterior motive of my making. Yes?
Yeah.
Remember? Forgiveness for salvation is pure forgiveness. I don't care what it was. No exceptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Comments on anything? Some are in a pensive mood here. And wait, let me see everybody on the screen here. All right.
Well, I think that was a good summary. Summation of, what you just made. Really just ties it all together in a neat pack. It's just simple.
Thank
Simple
you, Dee.
understanding.
Thank
It was
you.
helpful to me.
Do you see similarities between forgiveness for salvation and true prayer? You remember that reading before we got on forgiveness? What happens in true prayer? You remove yourself entirely. Erase yourself utterly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if I erase myself utterly, I will automatically find myself in that song that the creator and the created sing to one another forever. Is this ringing a bell for you, or?
It is, and along with erase myself utterly, there's a Buddhist saying, no self, no problem. So that's what happens when I erase myself utterly.
Yeah. Like everything happens for my good when I can learn to erase myself utterly. And is erasing utterly like 92% erase?
Nope. It's absolute.
Yeah. Okay. So the whole theme, it seems to me, is if you want to connect with these things, you have to, all I have to do is get out of the way so that they can happen on their own. I don't have questions. I don't second. I'm not, I say I don't. Maybe I should say I'm learning. I'm not supposed to second guess or anything. Just do it. Is that Nike or just do it? Any other comments here? All right. Well, with that said, shall we march on, my friends? Now, I think there may be, we're starting healing on page 16.
Mhm.
And I think it has 4 or 5 sections. 4 sections. And guess what? We'll be done. How about that, huh?
Okay.
Both supplements. So why don't we delve into it and talk about healing? Debbie, you're our next reader on page 16.
Okay. Healing. Introduction. Prayer has both aids and witnesses which make the steep ascent more gentle and more sure, easing the pain of fear and offering the comfort and the promises of hope. Forgiveness, witness, and an aid to prayer, a giver of assurance, and ultimate attainment of the goal is healing. Its importance should not be too strongly emphasized, for healing is a sign or symbol of forgiveness's strength, and only an effect or shadow of a change of mind about the goal of prayer.
Okay, so why should I not be surprised that I don't get any of this yet? Right? But I'm trusting that he's gonna make it plain as we go on, or plainer, I should say. Any comments on the introduction? Okay, then Linda, let's get into it. Roman 1, please.
The cause of
Comment
sickness.
on it. I think it's saying
Yes.
in general that the end result of all this to prayer and forgiveness is true forgiveness is healing.
That's an astute observation. And so you're saying the end result of prayer and forgiveness is healing?
That's what it's saying, that the ultimate attainment of the goal is healing.
Thank you. Anybody disagree, or is that valid for getting us started? Thanks, Steve. I agree. More comments? Okay, Linda.
And it's an encouragement why to do it, because it's going to heal my consciousness.
Well, what do you mean encouragement?
It's a good reason, you know, when sometimes I'm thinking I don't want to forgive, right? My ego is kicking in and it doesn't see the merits of forgiving when I'm stuck in my ego mind. And this is telling me that the results will be that I will heal.
And yet it still goes, I believe, with your statement, like from a lot of the Eastern teachers, that if I can eliminate myself, it would alleviate my suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yes, that all goes together, and the result would be healing.
It's a good incentive to me.
It is, and my ego's going, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, right? But what I have to remember is that I don't have to do the work. I have to be willing to allow it to be done for me by my higher self.
Mm-hmm.
What's another name for my higher self here?
Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Higher power.
Holy Spirit. That's who I am. And in my right mind, I'm a Holy Spirit. I'm not an unholy spirit. I'm not an uncertain spirit. I'm not a sometimes this way and sometimes that way. It's like the Course says, the Holy Spirit is the mediator or the link to the Father, because the Holy Spirit understands level 2 and what I'm going through, but doesn't believe it. It knows it's purely illusory, and that its purpose is to awaken. We good?
Mm-hmm.
Linda, we're back to you, my friend.
Do not mistake effect for cause, nor think that sickness is apart and separate from what its cause must be. It is a sign, a shadow of an evil thought that seems to have reality and to be just according to the usage of the world. It is external proof of inner sins and witnesses to unforgiving thoughts that injure and would hurt the Son of God. Healing the body is impossible, and this is shown by the brief nature of the cure. The body yet must die, and so its healing but delays its turning back to dust, where it was born and will return.
Thank you, Linda.
Welcome.
So true, as I've come to understand. But any comments? Don't mistake effect for cause, nor think that sickness is apart and separate from what its cause must be. That's something you can weigh in on for a minute. What does he mean? Do not mistake effect for cause. Well, I got lung cancer, and it was from smoking, right? So the cause was smoking, or was it?
I think it still could be, but I'm still trying to work it out in my head, but its effect is what we're not supposed to separate the effect from what the cause, not necessarily take away what the cause was, but don't lose the point of the effect. Anybody else getting that?
Well, what do you mean by it? Say a little bit more.
So you have lung cancer and it's because you smoke,
Yeah.
but there's more, I guess there's an effect. There's an effect that's happening along with that. And it's hard for me to put it into words, I guess. I'm still working it out in my head in a way that I think what the effect and what is happening to you, you have, you can heal from. The healing can still happen. And so they're saying, don't just look at that I have lung cancer because I smoked.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this other healing that can happen based on your forgiveness of believing it's real. I don't know. Anybody can jump in here.
How many of you know of Louise Hay?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You remember one of her books, You Can Heal Your Life or
Life.
something?
Mhm.
And she kind of gives the mental causes for physical effects
Right.
Mhm.
in that book. And I remember one was if you have a urinary tract infection that was coming from some sort of stress or anxiety, it was mental. But if I have lung cancer from smoking, then smoking is cause and the lung cancer is the effect. But I got a feeling that's not what this is going to say.
Well, it
Yes, it-
already didn't say that. It says that it's a witness to our unforgiving thoughts.
Yeah.
It's all about our
Mhm. We're,
It's
we're
mental.
disconnected from ourselves. We're disconnected from love, what we're supposed to be.
And what about sentence 4? Healing the body is impossible.
Mhm.
because
And
that's healing the effect. And we have to get to the
precisely, but not the cause.
right.
But our
And
body's in our mind. So it doesn't matter what we do to the body if we don't change our mind.
yeah, there's a lesson in the course that says only salvation can be said to cure. So what we're doing is putting on band-aids and trying to cure the effects without addressing the cause. Is that where he's kind of getting ready to go? Healing the body is impossible. And a lot of times I wonder why we put so much into trying to keep the body alive. Based on everything that's gone before and our track record, well, when do you think doctors will actually be able to heal themselves? Like in the next 20 years? 50 years? The next century? Based on that, I think what he's saying is the body cannot be expected to live forever because of what it is. It's a form.
Mhm.
What form do you know that's eternal?
Mhm.
So sometimes
Spirit.
I'll comment, yes,
Spirit is eternal.
but yeah, but
That
not the
right.
physical
Yeah.
form.
Right. Yeah.
So we really stress out over something that's impossible.
Yeah, doctors spend a lot of time looking at symptoms.
Yes.
They category, we have categories of symptoms. These categories are in, these symptoms are in the category of cancer, and these are in the category of infections. And anyway, we don't need to go on and on, but you get that.
And it makes me think of people like Deepak Chopra, who came from India, and with the inception of this thing called mind-body medicine, and was first to promote the idea of the connection between the mental and the physical apparatus and how it operates.
So does Bernie Siegel.
Right, Bernie Siegel.
Who's Bernie Siegel? I remember.
He's a medical doctor that totally he deals with cancer patients, and he has his total approach is about them healing their consciousness.
Okay.
He healed himself. He was dying, and he healed himself by exposing himself to laughter.
Oh no, that was Leo. Oh, that wasn't Bernie
No.
Siegel.
That was someone else.
What's his name? Leo
Bascala,
Yeah, him.
No,
something like that.
Yeah.
well, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. No.
No. Well, I think though that the point of this initial paragraph is to say that we're not addressing the cause of sickness.
Mm-hmm.
With all of our medical profession apparatus, for the most part, for century after century, it's been focused on working with the symptoms and not the cause.
Right.
I know,
And so are we doing that, because to say that the doctors are doing that, it's blaming it. We're going to the doctors for them to treat us the way they were trained to treat us.
Yes. So let me correct that. It's not to be projected on the profession.
Yeah.
Merely as part of this whole idea that has placed us in level 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like, as usual, he's getting ready to say there's another way to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that's where this is going so far?
Absolutely.
All right. Any additional comments?
Well, you go back thousands of years to Chinese medicine. That's the way they practice medicine, the way you're talking, not with drugs and x-rays and all this garbage. And so that's been around for thousands of years.
Is this like acupuncture as a technique and things like that?
Maybe. I'm not sure every technique they use, but it was not anything like what's practiced here today.
But it was still to heal the body.
Yeah, and therein, I think he's going to say still misses the mark.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to fathom this. Remember in the manual for teachers in the course where he talked about healing, and there was this thing about at some point the patient could merely say, I don't need this anymore, and rise up. And I'm going, okay, I love you, God, and stuff, but man, come on now. No, me, I like to try and keep it real. So, but I am being convinced slowly but surely. Who's our next reader? Let's do another. Ron, we're up
That's
to
me.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Number 2, the body's cause is unforgiveness of the Son of God. it has not left its source, and in its pain and aging and the mark of death upon it, this is clearly shown. Fearful and frail it seems to be to those who think their life is tied to its command and linked to its unstable tiny breath. Death stares at them as every moment goes irrevocably past their grasping hands, which cannot hold them back. And they feel fear as bodies change and sicken, for they sense the heavy sense of death upon their hearts.
Thank you. Do paragraph 3, and then we can maybe discuss them together.
Oh, I wanted to say the first sentence says it all. The
Okay.
body's cause is unforgiveness of the Son of God.
Well, what are your comments there, ma'am?
I think it's showing that that's the cause of any bodily pain or sickness.
And define forgiveness, and then we can extrapolate to unforgiveness. What is
Any
forgiveness?
unloving thought.
All right. Forgiveness is letting go of unloving thoughts. I feel healthier already. I just can't do it perfectly yet, right?
Right.
So he's saying that the body's cause is unforgiveness. Wait a minute. What does he mean, the body's cause? What's causing the body? Does that help me out? Wow.
Where are you?
See, I thought he said, if he said the cause of sickness is unforgiveness, but he didn't say that. He said the body's cause
Is unforgiveness.
I think
So
he's
that's
saying,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I think he's saying that that's why we are here, because we left the source,
Yeah.
we're a body because of that.
You mean like the tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh?
Yeah.
Is
Something
that
like that.
how we got bodies? Yes.
And maybe illness is a way of expressing unforgiveness,
It's just
you
that
know, because I don't know, it occurred to me, and I guess we can argue this point, but if somebody's having an asthma attack, they need an inhaler. You know, I mean, we can get to unforgiveness, but at that moment in time when that person can't breathe, an inhaler might be a good idea.
yeah, I definitely agree with you.
Or oxygen, or you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
But what's hitting me is how this statement is much broader than
Yes.
illness of
Yeah.
any kind. It says the cause of the whole body in the first place. Am I reading that wrong?
Mhm.
And it's the next one. It says that it's shown in the body. It has not left its source, and in its pain, in the body's pain and aging and the mark of death upon it, this is clearly shown. So the body shows us where our unloving thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm still trying to tie it into the tiny mad idea. Was that the cause of bodies?
Isn't it a projection?
I'm
Isn't it?
thinking if it's not real. Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to belabor it. It's just that I was struck upon reading it again. He didn't say the cause of illness is unforgiveness of the Son of God, did he?
No, they said the body's
The body itself. So I won't beat it into the ground because I don't understand it that well yet. Okay. any other, did
Well,
we started? Yes, go ahead, man.
when we separated from God, then we got a body. So that's it.
That's, yeah, I'm that far back on it. The separation, the body was in support of separation.
Right.
And it was the result of unforgiveness because we didn't remember to laugh at that stupid idea of separate heavens. Linda, how you doing over there? Linda?
I'm pondering.
Processing?
So I thought that God was the cause and his sons were the effect. Is that right?
Yes, but are God's sons bodies?
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah. Bodies were part of the rebellion.
Yeah.
Separate heavens, right?
Yeah, but then are we the cause down here on earth or are we the effect? That's where I'm thinking about. I can't figure that out. Well,
I think what he's saying is this whole level 2 scenario was the result of believing we could have our own separate heavens, that we could be separate from our source. And isn't the body a very nice container for that separation idea?
yeah.
In
Yeah.
the workbook part 2, I think it's number 7, it says, what is the body? And it says the body is an imaginary fence that the son is a fence that the Son of God has placed around himself to separate himself from himself. Fill in the small s and capital S. So yeah, but boy, I'm running out of words here, and I don't want to get too hung up on it. But okay, my ears aren't smoking yet, are they? Because this is like short circuiting. All right. We had a reader, D, you made that comment. Thank you for that in paragraph 2. Are we ready to move on and see if we can sneak maybe both of these in and call it a night?
Okay.
So our next reader here, are we back to Sherilyn or I'm confused. Where are we?
Okay, all right, and tell me which paragraph we're on because I've had some interruptions.
Aren't we
here.
on paragraph 3?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I thought we were on D's turn.
Okay. D,
was
did you
after
not
me.
get to read?
I haven't read yet, but it's okay.
D's
oh, that's
turn.
fine,
Forgive
I'm
me, Sherilyn. Let's do D.
sure.
And we're on paragraph 3.
Yes.
The body can be healed as an effect of true forgiveness.
Hmm.
Only that can give remembrance of immortality, which is the gift of holiness and love. Forgiveness must be given by a mind which understands that it must overlook all shadows on the holy face of Christ, among which sickness should be seen as one. Nothing but that, the sign of judgment made by brother upon brother and the Son of God upon himself. For he has damned his body as his prison and forgot that it is he who gave this role to it.
Hmm. Let's do.
So it says that sentence 1, the body can be healed as an effect of true forgiveness. And that's what it said in the intro to this section, that forgiveness leads to healing.
You're on what sentence?
Sentence 1, the body can be healed as an effect of true forgiveness. So it's not that you're healing the body, you're healing your unforgiving, your consciousness of your unforgiving thoughts. And as an effect, that our consciousness is healed, all of us is
Then the
healed.
body would follow from that. Yes,
Makes sense to me.
me too. And I appreciate your insights here. In the Bible, there's a verse in the gospel where Jesus says, man is not defiled by what goes into his body, but by what comes out of it.
Mouth.
Why would I think of that now? Yeah, the body becomes an effect of my thoughts. And so to the extent that I learned forgiveness, which helps me reestablish participation in true prayer, and then getting my mental aspects together, it's reflected in my output. My body is a reflection of what's coming out as opposed to what's going into it. What do you think about that? Like, if you like eating cheeseburgers and stuff, or eating with tax collectors and things like that, do cheeseburgers defile the body?
Our consciousness about them does. Does or does not. Depends on our consciousness. That's all that's healing, being healed here is our consciousness.
So maybe it's not the cheeseburger as much as it is my mental state that wants to eat 2 or 3 or 4 of them at a time. You know, like, why would people eat a lot? A lot of folks say it's making up for some sort of psychological deficit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole thing to me goes back to everything that's happening is coming from a mental activity, including sickness. So I think I'm in line with where this is going. And I think maybe we could stop here, even though we didn't finish this section. So we did paragraph 3, but not 4. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when we meet next time, we'll do these 2 paragraphs, and then we'll move into Roman 2, and then Roman 3, and Roman 4. Oh, we might be done just in time for like a Christmas break or something. What do you think? Yeah?
That's good.
Yeah. Spirit's working on it. Thank you for being here tonight. I like talking to you because you don't seem to get mad at me if I don't know it either. We're all in this together, right?
Sure.
But at least we're giving it a good try, and I feel good about that. Any final comments or anything before we close tonight?
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Happy Thanksgiving,
everybody.
my
Yeah, I
friend.
think we can echo that. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
And I will, for those that weren't here, Hildegard is making good progress.
Right.
And she is in a different nursing home. I'll be going over to see her tomorrow afternoon and spend a little time. And she says, thank you so much for all of your prayers for her. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for the update. Send her
Absolutely.
love.
So let's see, Joan, you want to do our close tonight?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right, go right ahead, my friend.
Okay, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. I am the light of God.
I am
the light.
Light of God.
I am the love of God.
I am
I am
The
the
love
love
of God.
God.
I am the power of God.
I
I
am
am the
Power
power
of
of
God.
God.
I am the presence of God.
I
I am the presence of
presence
God.
Wherever God is,
Wherever God is,
Wherever God is,
I am,
I am.
I am.
and all is well.
and all
And
is
All is well.
There is nothing to fear. There is only love.
Only one thing. Keep working at it, okay?
Hey,
Love you. See you next time.
love you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim.
Guys, happy
Namaste.
Absolutely.
Thanksgiving.
Have a
Good
blessed
night,
week, everybody.
everybody.